Good morning, everyone. We're here today to celebrate the accomplishments of a whole lot of Pennsylvania middle school and high school students who have been participating in the Beating the Odds Foundation's Quarterbacks of Life program. This is a program that gives kids the skills they need to succeed in life. This live broadcast will feature students from 6 schools giving us presentations about research assignments they've conducted over the last several months. I'm Beth Dickey and I'll be your host today. 12 schools are represented in our audience today. And as I said, over several months, they undertook a NASA Exploration Design Challenge that studied the effects of radiation on human space travelers. Through the guides of their teachers, they analyzed materials that are suggested for use in spacecraft shielding on Orion. That's the spacecraft that NASA is developing to take us on a journey to Mars in the not-so-distant future. And then they recommended materials they thought might work. We're going to hear from 6 student teams and 2 NASA professionals today. But first, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden has a welcome for our young guests.
NASA Administrator. Thank you all for traveling to NASA headquarters. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I want to welcome all of you and ask you to send my greetings to all your fellow students back in Pennsylvania. We appreciate the return visit and hope we can continue this wonderful exchange. You know, my message to students is pretty simple. Work hard, study hard, and don't be afraid of failure. You can't go wrong by applying these principles to your lives. I can also highly recommend the Beating the Odds Foundation's call for you to dream big and overcome adversity. It really works. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina during the days of segregation, when opportunities were scarce for people like me. Fortunately for me, my parents were career educators who inspired me and countless other students by their examples of persistence, motivation, and fearlessness. My path to success came through public service, but also a lot of hard work in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I know that just by being here, you all have an interest in those fields, and let me tell you, we need you. The future is bright for people who can help our nation develop and use the technologies of the future and send humans to farther destinations in the solar system, like an asteroid and Mars. Right now, we're working on the Space Launch System rocket and Orion crew module that will carry astronauts on those missions. And I look forward to hearing more about your work on the Orion Radiation Shield Research Project. Finding a solution to radiation exposure in space is one of the critical challenges we'll have to meet to get to Mars. And I'm glad you are putting your talented minds to work on it. I want to congratulate all of you for your motivation, your willingness to work hard, and your creativity. Stay focused on your studies and keep working hard, and one day you could be taking a seat across from the NASA Administrator as we plan our next missions to space with humans and robotic explorers. I hope you'll take back some inspiration today from the many exciting things you'll see here and at the Goddard Space Flight Center. I know you've been working with mentors on your project, and you'll hear from many more people today who can give you guidance about how to get where they are. What you're learning in this program is as much about other people as it is about you. It's about what you can do to make the world better. You've already taken the first steps on that path. Keep on. We're all here for you.
Thank you, Administrator Bolden. The Beating the Odds Foundation's president and founder is Rocco Scalzi, a former police officer whose mission is to motivate and inspire young students, and we welcome you. He wants to prepare them for the slings and arrows of life that inevitably come and to encourage them to never give up. It was Mr. Bolden who inspired him to find a way to apply his foundation's work with school districts using NASA as a real-life example of the pathway to success. The stepping stones on that pathway are dreams and goals, self-esteem, team support, deciding and planning, and a positive attitude. The foundation collaborates with school districts to teach students how to apply these principles to realize their dreams and have a better shot at living meaningful, safe, and successful lives. Now, we say in football that quarterbacks are the team players who are charged with moving the ball down the field. The foundation wants every kid to know that everyone has an opportunity to be a quarterback on the playing field of life. And what better way to tell them that message than to pair them with role models ranging from a former president to airline pilots to coal mine disaster survivors to sports stars. All of these folks know just what it means to be a team player and to succeed. And one of those is Pro Football Hall of Famer Warren Moon, who's here with us today. He's the founder and the president of Sports One Marketing, and he is a Beating the Odds Foundation partner. He's here with his CEO, David Meltzer. Welcome.
Well, what a great partnership between Beating the Odds and NASA, because I believe in fulfilling all of your dreams, and that takes those pillars of success that you're learning from that program. Believe it or not, I dreamed about being an NFL quarterback, and probably couldn't have. It was a dream. And that's why it's so important to dream, though, because I stuck to my dream, and although I didn't manifest that dream, I was able to alter it and become the CEO of the largest sports agency in the world and partner with the greatest quarterback ever to play. And I did that by following those pillars of success that the Beating the Odds Foundation educates and inspires young people to do. And it's simply by consciously thinking about what you want, becoming inspired, and then making that a reality through your action, which is a vision of those objectives and the persistence to get it. Only listen to yourself. If I didn't make it as a quarterback, but if I grew up with a single mom, 6 kids in my family, she was an educator, and I have everything I ever dreamed of, including I just got to throw the first pitch out at the Angel game. So anything can happen, although I didn't quite throw the ball like he does. Thanks for having us.
First of all, thanks for having me here this afternoon, Dave and myself. I got involved with Beat the Odds Foundation in about 2007, and hearing what the mission of the foundation was, it just coincided with what the foundation that I run, the Crescent Moon Foundation, happens to do as far as providing scholarships to underprivileged kids who have gone through some type of adversity in their life but persevered through those adversities and have still found a way to make themselves successful. Beating the Odds does that with young kids. That's what this program is all about. Everyone is going to go through their own adversities in life. You know, I went through mine as far as trying to be a quarterback, an African-American quarterback in a time where African-Americans weren't really accepted at that position. It was a very tough journey for me to make it to where I made it to into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Going out of high school, I didn't get a scholarship offer to major schools coming out of college, out of high school because of sometimes the color of my skin. The same thing going into the National Football League. I went and played in the Canadian Football League before I got my chance to play in the NFL. But once I finally got that opportunity, I took advantage of it. And through all that adversity, I just kept myself positive as far as I'm going to continue to keep improving. I'm going to continue to do the things that I know that I'm capable of doing. And when I finally do get that opportunity, I'm going to be ready to take advantage of it. And that's exactly what I did, and that's what I try and tell young people, that things aren't going to always happen in the order that you want them to happen. But if you just continually stay on your course, stay on the goals that you set for yourself, dream real big, those dreams can eventually come true if you just stay the course and don't let those negative influences take you away from what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm a perfect example of that happening. I'm now a Pro Football Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever play the game, and I'm in a position now where I can give a lot of the advice that I've learned throughout my journey to young students like yourself, because basically all I want for you guys is to be everything that you want to be in life, and that's what Beating the Odds Foundation is all about. That's what Quarterbacks for Life is all about, is providing you with knowledge from people that have gone through adversity in their lives, have persevered through that adversity and become successful, and we want to share that with you. So please take advantage of all the opportunities that you have today and throughout this educational program, especially with NASA, because there's Quarterbacks for Life throughout this whole space program that you guys can really benefit from. So thanks for having us both out here this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon, Mr. Meltzer. We're very honored to have you here. This is NASA's second year working with the Beating the Odds Foundation. In just that year, the program with us has grown from 2 schools and 50 students to 12 schools and about 150 students. And that includes junior ROTC members from the Philadelphia area. Don't stand yet. I'm going to introduce you in just a second. But we do want to introduce all the folks from those schools. So here we go. Representing John Bartram, Frankfurt, Overbrook, South Philadelphia, Roxborough High Schools, and Philadelphia Military Academy. All the junior ROTC members, stand and give yourselves a cheer and a wave. Welcome. All right, thank you. Now we'll get to the schools who are having presentations today. After I say the name of your school and the names of your presenters and your teachers, stand and give yourselves a cheer. From Bellwood, Pennsylvania, Bellwood Artists Middle School, Cassie Ryder and Quentin Nelson, student presenters, Jamie Forshee and Susan Nycom, teachers, and Donald Wagner, principal. There you go. You're a little quiet. Get loud. From Carmichael's, Pennsylvania, Carmichael's Junior Senior High School, student presenters Adam Donaldson, Madison Wilson, and teachers Cassie Minhart and Jessica Hathaway. Welcome. From Perryopolis, Pennsylvania, Fraser Middle and High School, Hattie Lindy and Michael Nutt. Student presenters Zach Kiefer, Janet Reed, Joe Scalise, Mike Shannon, Melissa Stairs, teachers, and Mike Turek, principal. Welcome. And from Washington, Pennsylvania, Washington Junior Senior High School, Elizabeth Geisey, and I'm sorry if I really butcher this name, Jair Patman, students, and Deborah Mainwaring, teacher. Hi. All right, I think I got everyone. Let's get to the business of the morning. At NASA, oh, Waynesboro. Somebody's telling me I missed Waynesboro. Waynesboro High Schools. Stand up. I'm sorry I don't have a list of names for you, but please do stand and let us welcome you. Waynesboro, are you here? Waynesburg. Waynesburg. West Green. Maybe not. There you are. All right. I'm sorry about that. Good morning. Welcome. All right, so now to the business of the morning. At NASA, we like to say that we reach new heights and we explore the unknown so that we can provide for the benefit of all humanity. That's a big statement, but 2 of NASA's best who are here with us today are doing just that. Jason Crusan and Nujoud Merancy. And our first presenter is Jason Crusan. He manages 500 to 600 people and an active portfolio of 20 to 30 engineering and design projects here in NASA's Advanced Exploration Division. He holds a bachelor in electrical engineering and physics, a master's degree in computer information systems, and he's a candidate for a PhD in engineering management at George Washington University. Jason?
Thank you guys. So first off, thank you for letting me be able to talk to you guys a little bit today. And what I'm going to start off is showing you the kind of grand challenge that NASA is embarking upon about sending humans into deep space, specifically out to Mars, into cislunar space, further than we've ever gone before. So I'm going to show you kind of a couple images and the challenges that we're facing as engineers as we're designing all these systems. And this first image I'm going to show you is kind of an iconic image. It's a famous photographer taking a picture of Buzz Aldrin coming down the steps on the lunar lander. This is kind of what people envision as our iconic image of human spaceflight today. Unfortunately, it's actually a little bit wrong. We're actually doing things even grander than this. And they're in Apollo. We went off and set out to be the first to be there to plant flags and footprints and be the first to be on the surface. We conducted a series of missions. We actually produced a bunch of hardware to do it even longer than the program actually ran. But it ended at that point. The next image we have is of the space station today. So the space station is our current kind of foothold into space in low Earth orbit. It's been up there for many, many years now. We have a crew of 6 continuously manning it and operating science and conducting the research that's critical up there. But it does more than just flags and footprints. It wasn't just the first to be a space station. It's conducting critical research on human biology to understand physical effects and how humans actually can live off the planet, which is kind of important on these long duration missions that we want to send people out. Some of the missions we're looking at are 300 to 1,000 day round trip. So multiple year missions out to Mars and back. The next thing is a lot of the technology challenges, and you'll hear about the systems that we're building to actually empower the crews to actually go out into space. So there's a lot of technology challenges that we're advancing on the space station. The next part is we're actually doing fundamental research that benefits us here today. So we're doing physical and life sciences research, understanding the biology up there, not just to send humans out, but understand biology effects back here on Earth as well. And the last part of space station is actually building an economy off the planet. So you think about research facilities here, and you think about this robust industry and everything else that's occurring on the ground. We're now expanding that into space. You think about communication satellites enabling everything we have today, to GPS that's allowing mapping and things like that, to Earth observation. Our latest cell phone technology of being able to download your images are now going to start advancing to the point that you can look at your imagery from yesterday at a specific point of anywhere on the globe. The space station is helping us expand those kind of markets that we have. And that's kind of a critical role that the space station is. But this talks to about not just going out just to do an audacious kind of experiment or to go out there to be first, but rather the broader impact that human spaceflight can have on the world and the things we're doing. So back in 2010, the President gave us a bold challenge of extended human presence further into space and farther than we've ever gone. And we're now embarking upon that, and we've been continuously underway, even before this, on building those systems that will actually take us there. So to kind of describe some of these systems, you'll hear from the other folks today about some of these systems. First off, you got to get there, and you got to get home. So your transportation systems. So you need a very large rocket in order to send up all the habitation systems, the things that keep you alive, the engines that will send you out into deep space, and those kind of things. And then when you get to a planet, you need to be able to rendezvous, actually stay in orbit, not just fly by, and be able to land on that planet. And you think about, as you see, like our Mars landings today. Mars landings today, we're landing something the size of a car, basically, on the surface, of about 1 ton of landed mass. When we send humans to Mars, it won't be just 1 ton, it'll be 27 tons. So think of something that's actually a little bit larger than the buses that you guys came in on today, landing that on the surface of Mars with a really, really high precision, because we got to do it more than once. So if you can't land one module over here and then 100 kilometers, 100 miles away, you land the other module, the crew would kind of get annoyed of being able to have to walk between them. So we actually have to precision land these, and I'll show you some of the technologies that we're advancing, how we actually land things very, very close together, accurately and over as well. So when you're in space, the space station is teaching us a lot of things about how to live off the planet. Our bodies act differently. Fluids move around. You get a stuffy head because a lot of fluids go to your head. We're working through challenges like vision impairment that is actually caused by pressure in your intracranial pressure, causing pinching of your optical nerves in space. And we're trying to figure out how do you register that? How do you mitigate it? How do you mitigate the effects of bone loss and muscle atrophy when you're in space? And we have a very rigid exercise program that would stand up to most of the NFL programs of some of our crew members on orbit, where they actually exercise 2 to 3 hours every day and actually are coming back in better muscle shape than they went up in a lot of cases. So we are meeting those types of challenges. On the space station today, if something were to medically go wrong, we can actually get in one of our capsules and come home and be in a U.S. hospital in less than 17 hours. That's a great safety net that we have. When you're on your way to Mars, you don't come home early. All of our scenarios for Mars, you're going to Mars. So if something happens on the way there, you're still going to Mars. You don't just jump in your spacecraft and come home. The physics of it all makes sure that you're still going. At least what you're going to do is go out and do a flyby and come back. So you're going to be on for over a couple years at that point. So how do you think about how to do medical treatment? Yeah, we select astronauts on criteria to minimize those kind of effects, but some medical emergencies may happen along the way. So how do you think about autonomous medicine? And how do you do telemedicine, kind of a pretty big extreme telemedicine out there as well? The spaceship itself is very complex. We have to have life support systems. We have to have things that recycle the air, recycle the water. We actually reuse over 85% of our water on the space station today. So you think about your home systems and your, like in an average city or even a rural area, if you use water, the whole water cycle that you guys have learned about, you may use the same water again 600 days or 6 years later. Every 6 days the same water is used on the space station. Just don't think about that too much. So we have to figure out environmental monitoring and figuring out how is the air quality over time. When we get to some place like Mars, we know a lot about it as we've been studying robotically about what the regolith of the dirt does to us. We know the air quality and such, but we're also going to have to monitor what are we bringing back inside when our crews go out and actually explore the surface of the planet. Are they bringing anything back in that we don't know that they're bringing in? It could be as simple as dust and those kind of irritants, or maybe something more complex. So how do you actually analyze that? And speaking about going outside, we have spacesuits today. And we've done a lot of spacewalks to assemble the space station. But when we go to the surface of Mars, you don't want to stay inside. You want to be able to get out there and walk around. So we're actually building next generation spacesuits to allow us to rapidly go outside and go explore. Like, we want to look at that rock over there. Let's go out there and actually go gather that sample and bring it back. So we're designing the next generation spacesuits as well. So when you're there and you're working in space, how do you communicate back to Earth? So we complain about our internet speeds here on Earth, even though we have some of the best in the world. But how do we actually do next generation communications all the way back from deep space? We use radio frequencies primarily for a lot of our communication systems, but now we're actually creating laser communication systems. So we're actually using light in order to speed up the pace at which data gets back and also the bandwidth that we have. So we demonstrated the first use of laser communications at the moon here recently on a mission called LADEE. We had over 600 megabits per second return signal from the moon. That's better than my home internet was a couple years ago. But it was all laser-based. So you think about a big laser light just shining all the way back from Mars, and us with telescopes here receiving it and decoding that signal that we have. So also, if you think the space station assembly, we didn't do that in one flight. We did that over 20-some flights and assembled the space station. When we go to Mars, the vehicles will be quite large as well. There will be a period of time where we need to assemble different pieces. Even with the largest rocket that's ever been built, we're going to still launch it up in a couple pieces. We'll actually rendezvous those pieces in deep space and assemble them. And there may be some outfitting things where we actually have to send crews out to actually finish building it and such. So it's a very big construction project that we get out there. The other things that we're looking at is in situ resource utilization. It's a fancy word for learning to live off the land. We have discovered water all over the solar system. There's water on Mars, there's water on the moon. How do we utilize those sources of water in our overall mission there? You don't want to take all your water with you. You may not actually want to take all your propellant, your gases that will actually power your engines for your return trip. So how do you gather those gases and put them into some usable form for your actual return trip home and or for simple things like drinking water? So I'm going to show you one of the specific challenges we've been working on. I talked about that rendezvous operations. I've talked about the landing piece that we're trying to do, that precision landing. When we do Mars today, our current missions, we land them in about a 20-kilometer accuracy. That's a reasonable accuracy for robotic missions, and our robotic rovers can move around within that 20 kilometers, and that's a reasonable thing to ask a robot to do. Again, when I talked about landing those 27-ton landers on the surface of the Mars, if they were all 20 kilometers or greater from each other, that would be a pretty big challenge. So we're trying to advance our state of knowledge of how to land things very precisely. We don't have the luxury of GPS out at Mars. So we have to be able to do our own navigation solutions. We have to be able to look at the terrain, look at high-quality maps, and do what we call terrain relative navigation. So pick a point, and you actually go ahead and zoom in on that point and keep on flying down that point. But even our maps aren't all that accurate. So sometimes there's hazards that, and we saw this during Apollo, that at the last minute of the descent, there was a rock. The rock was quite large, and you wanted to be able to divert and land somewhere else. So hazard avoidance type work. So over the past couple years, we were developing a test bed called Morpheus. Morpheus, you'll see here in a minute, is about a 12-foot by 12-foot tall landed lander. It's using liquid oxygen and methane. And it uses those in these large silver tanks, and we actually were conducting flights of that over the past couple years to actually demonstrate this new precision landing. The instrument that actually it carries is called ALLHAT. It's a hazard avoidance and package that we have down there. It has an optical sensors and such to figure out where we're flying at. It took us a while to get the vehicle flying the first time. We did this all kind of in-house, kind of a lean engineering team, very rapid team. And I'll show you, we did a whole series of tether flights, which we hung it from a crane, testing the engines, making sure everything worked great. We were really confident of that. We then took that whole setup and moved it down to Florida at our Kennedy Space Center and said, okay, we're ready to go start flying this free flights, so no safety net. And we're going to go fly up in the air and precision land over on a simulated field that we had created. So with that, I'll roll the first video. And this video is showing that first test of Morpheus. Just for reference, that's not what it's supposed to do. It flew about 3 meters up in the air. What actually happened to us is one of our cables was loose on what it told it where its reference was or where it was in space, in the air. So it actually thought it was flying the wrong direction, and it just kept on going on purpose. And careened over into itself. What you're seeing here, though, is the wreckage there. If you notice the very slight hiss sound you're hearing. So this was a day after I had my vacation. I had gotten back. I was actually sitting home with my kids watching online, because we actually broadcast this all online, watching the video, and I said, well, this is a great day to be back from vacation. And watching the team as we were executing the test, and I hear the whistle. So you hear the whistle, and that's pressure relief valves popping and stuff, as all that propellant that was in those tanks is heating up from the initial impact, and the pressure is just climbing and climbing and climbing. And I was telling my kids, I'm like, wait for it. There'll be a much more spectacular explosion here in about a minute, and wait for it, and then that's what you see there. So this development was in-house. It was actually a very lean, low-cost kind of team that we have. And in fact, they were very rapid at building this, and it was actually one of the lowest cost kind of test beds we've ever built, which is a testament to the engineers we have. We kind of called it Home Depot engineering and those kind of things, where literally everything was built there in-house and very quickly. What was interesting about this is a significant test failure. So the day that we did this test was in the same week that we had landed Curiosity on Mars. So NASA had achieved one of its hardest achievements it had ever done, flying all the way to Mars, entering through the Mars atmosphere, deploying a crane, a sky crane, if you've ever seen the Mars deployment, hovering, lowering a rover, separating the rover and then flying the crane off. That's a pretty audacious kind of concept we had. In the same week, we're testing our next generation landing systems and such, and we had a bad day. It was a test failure. But it was a very low cost system. We didn't have a bunch of redundancy in it, and we were very rapid about doing our testing. So This is not typical NASA. So NASA, we have a lot of mantra of you can't fail and such. But we actually have to fail sometimes in order to figure out where the boundary is. I always nag our test teams. If you go out and do a big test and you get to the very end of the test and nothing happened, did we push hard enough? Did you find the edge of performance? Did you push yourself to the edge, and did you actually take risk? So if you're not taking risk, then what's the point in the test? You tested that you could actually operate a system. You don't know actually where the system's going to break still. So less than 4 hours after this test failure we had already committed to the team that we were going to rebuild. And the team got together and said, okay, let's see how we can go about rebuilding Morpheus to get back into flight as quickly as we can and go do that. So the next video I'm going to queue up is kind of a short time lapse of the actual rebuild of the spacecraft to give you a little bit of how everything comes together. And then you'll see how the test ended up after that rebuild cycle that we had as well. So if you can roll the second video. So what you see there is the primary structure. That's big blocks of aluminum and the tanks coming in. All the electronics on the top plate there. This is also the engine. Interesting enough, the engine that was on the vehicle that blew up, it's the same engine. So we're doing tank burst testing to figure out where the burst limits are on the tanks. We get back to doing tether tests. So we're flying with a crane under the safety of a crane, seeing about the stability that we can get. Our team operating down at Johnson Space Center, doing all that testing. Our previous vehicle, we had flown 27 times on a crane, and we finally gotten to a point that we felt confident in the flight. This new vehicle, after 4 flights, we were already exceeding the prior vehicle's performance. So this is one of its first flights down at Kennedy. As you see, it went a little bit better. This culminated in one of our highest daytime flights. What you're seeing there is it's flying in the air at a height that's over the height of the vehicle assembly building, over 800 meters into the air. It's going to actually then take its laser ranging system and actually actively scan the landing zone. It's actually going to do a full 3D scan of the entire system, calculate its own navigation solution, feed the software back in, and land. And it does that in less than 6 seconds. So any of the computer folks in the room, it's actually using a 92 core processor, all in real time, the fastest computer that we've ever built for space. The other objective we had was also to fly in all lighting conditions. When we go to planets, we want to land when we want to land. We don't want to wait for daylight cycles. So we had to also fly at night, which was a really kind of fun event for the team as well. So with that, our team completed its test campaigns. We flew 15 free flights, and what you saw at the end of the last 2 free flights we had. In less than a year after destroying the vehicle, they were back flying again, and achieved all of our test objectives in an amazing fashion with them. And just a really commendable team of actually overcoming a test failure, rallying, and actually building everything again. The engine itself surviving the crash. So I said that the engine that flew on the second vehicle was the same engine that was on the first vehicle. It just so happened when it crashed, it was still flowing all of its propellants. Those propellants are really cold. And it actually kept the engine safe while everything around it was blowing up and burning and everything else. So we literally took the engine out of the wreckage, cleaned it up, did a couple patches on it, and then it actually flew our entire flight campaign for 15 more flights after that. So it's a really neat lesson on just, to us, even internally, to us, it was overcoming this kind of adversity and actually hitting the challenges that we have ahead. And we have, for every one of those big systems that I talked about, the transportation, the living, the going spacewalking, all those challenges, we have investments going on in every one of those efforts. They don't go well. This was a pretty spectacular failure for us. People ask, well, how often does failure occur? Well, in that week that we failed there, I also had 3 other engineering projects that we had test failures that week. This one just happened to be on live TV because we broadcast it everywhere live at that point in time. So with that, I think I'm going to switch over to some Q&A.
Right. So I don't know about you, Jason, but I look at that stuff and I think it's really cool that they pay me to do this. And I get to work here. But what's even more gratifying than that is when I walked back up here to take the riser, I looked out and I just see you people sitting on the edges of your seats. And there's not a frown, there's not a bored look in the house. And that's really, really gratifying to me, and I'm sure to Jason too. It's clear that you all are really enjoying what you're hearing. So we're going to take some questions. We have roving microphones. So I'd ask that you raise your hand, wait for the microphone. When you see it come to you, I'll call on you, and when you get the mic, then tell us your name and your school and ask your question, okay? Who's got a question? Right there in the... No.
Sorry.
If you'll sit down for just a second, there's a young lady behind you with a microphone. We'll bring it to you.
Was there any point in the project where you felt most pleased and accomplished?
You know, in this specific one, the pleasure I had out of it was actually the reaction of the team. I mean, it's a really sad day when you have like 3 or 4 years of your hard work kind of go up in flames, literally. But the rallying of the team to kind of come back and build, and actually just amazing, because not only did they build it better, I mean, I talked about, we flew it 27 times. We thought we actually knew how to fly this vehicle. The new vehicle we got, after 4 flights, it was outperforming the next one. So it was just a really resilient team. Every one of those folks on the team are really, really good friends, colleagues. They'll go on to many, many other missions and impacts that we have. But that kind of team dynamics, I mean, we always talk about at NASA, the hardware is really cool. That's what you guys get to see. But for us, it's about the people that we have and the kind of colleagues and collegial work that they all get together and do. And we just happen to have one of the funnest jobs, I think, that you could have. So.
Okay, the eager gentleman here in the 3rd row.
How you doing?
Yes.
How many different parts of, like, different type of mechanical parts did you have to use?
The number of parts on that system, I actually don't know the number of parts. The primary structure is pretty thick aluminum. It's not built like we would build something to go to space. It was built to be transported, and you saw it being drugged behind our Hummer down the runway. We shipped it across country just on the back of a semi. I'm sure some people got amazed when they saw a rocket kind of going down the highway. So it was built very rugged, so that it weighs quite a bit. It weighs several thousand pounds. So you had the main primary structure. You had the landing gear. You saw the landing pads that are there, and then the tanks themselves. Interesting enough, in our first test of this, we had landing pads down there that had some protection on them, but we found when we started the engines, the first time we started the engines on a free flight, it blew the landing pads off. Because we never had tested it in that configuration. We'd always hung it from a crane, and the big rocket plume would just spray down into the air, and it didn't have an effect. When we took off from a landing pad, all that pressure actually just kicked out the landing gear and kicked off literally the landing pads themselves. So there's a lot of different mechanical systems in there, but I don't know the exact number.
Who else has a question?
Have you tested out any other creations after this at night?
Sorry? Have we tested any other creations? So yeah, and all those different challenge areas I was talking about, we have investments on there. We're actually building the next generation spacesuits right now. So the spacesuit is made up of the garment that you see, along with a backpack. It's a life support system. We're actually developing that next generation spacesuit right now. And in fact, we're in human testing for it. And it will be our next spacesuit that we'll actually use in space. I talked about living off the land. We're actually building an instrument for Mars 2020 that will take the atmosphere of Mars, which has a large component of CO2 in it, separate out the CO2 into carbon and take the oxygen that's there. And oxygen is one of the key components to rocket fuel. So we're actually building that instrument now, and it will fly on our next Mars robotic mission out there. So every one of those, we have different tests and developments going on all the time.
Thanks for that great question. Tell us your name and your school, please.
My name is Mignon Woods, and I'm from the Philadelphia Military Academy.
Welcome, welcome.
Or
Anyone else with a question? And remember, please, when you get the mic, here in the striped shirt in the middle, about the middle of the auditorium, let us know who you are and where you're from.
Madison Renner, West Green. How many tests do you perform on the...
On anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we follow kind of it depends on what we're doing. So in a lot of cases, we do a lot of ground testing and a lab testing. Here, this vehicle, just in order to get the test bed going. So Morpheus, as a rocket test facility, we had to get the test facility up and running. The whole purpose of Morpheus was actually to test the landing sensors. So we needed to be able to get a whole flight vehicle running and get it into what we call relative environment, or where you want to see the right velocities and the right attitudes and all that. So in that case, we conducted over nearly probably 50 flights between the two. On a traditional kind of things that we send into space, we do a whole series of what we call engineering ground units. We do then certification flights where we actually run it through its entire paces. And then in some cases, we do full up in-space flight demonstrations, as you'll see from my Orion colleagues right after me. When it depends on the criticality of the system. If there's going to be somebody on board, our level of certification is considerably up. If it's just a robotics demo that may not have to work, then our level of testing goes to a lower level. And we manage that as kind of a risk management approach and balance that. You can't test everything to ensure it works, so we just have to balance how much testing we do.
Anyone else? Christine? Yep, we've got someone up in the back, and then we'll come to you.
I'm Paulino Cuevas, and how do you encourage creative thinking to people around you? That's
always a fun one. I mean, as engineers, we're engineering creative, which isn't creative sometimes. We like things that are nice, orderly fashion, physics and math and all that kind of stuff. Thinking outside of the box is a hard thing for us to do sometimes. So we have a lot of brainstorming type sessions. We challenge each other. Simple things like not having resources. In some cases, I purposely don't give some of my projects money, which forces them to think outside the box and do things in a different way that they would normally not do. If you have unlimited money, you just go buy everything and you certify it and you do all kinds of testing. If you don't have that much money, you do it with what you have, and you then get more creative on how to go do that testing. We run a lot of thought processes on different architectures, or how would we actually expand human spaceflight out there. And we run a lot of scenarios. We also fund work at universities. So a lot of college students actually bring in a lot of new ideas to us, and we engage them on a regular basis, because actually the young people that haven't been as tainted by doing spaceflight for 20, 30 years have a lot of great new ideas. So you guys will be there very soon, and we'll actually be looking for university students to help us and continue to do that. So.
Okay, great. Well, that was the last question we have time for right now. We need to move on, but thank you, Jason. Really, really good presentation. All right, next up is Nujoud Merancy. She has been a systems engineer on the Orion spacecraft project for the past 6 years. Currently, she serves as the mission planning and analysis lead. Before that, She worked on the International Space Station Guidance, Navigation, and Control System. She has a Master of Science in Science and Systems Engineering, a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering. Nujoud?
Good afternoon, or good morning. Not quite afternoon yet. I'm really excited to be here. This is really fun. Oh, there we go. So my name is Nujoud Merancy. I put this up here because I'm from Tumwater, Washington, which is about as far from a NASA center as you can be in this country, except maybe Hawaii or Alaska. But I just want to say that I never knew a NASA person or someone that worked at NASA until I started working there myself. So it is a long way for a lot of us from where you come from to working at NASA. But everyone down at Johnson Space Center where I work in Houston, I don't know very many native Texans because people literally come from all over the country and all over the world. So this is something that a lot of people aspire to, and I'm incredibly fortunate that I've been able to get there myself. So I'm here to talk about the Orion vehicle. So this vehicle is supposed to be the next vehicle for America to take crew safely to and from space. That is ultimately our primary purpose, is that safety of getting them to and from space, which is the most dynamic and the most dangerous time of space flight. So the vehicle you see, we have several parts to it. This is the EFT-1 flight configuration. The important part is the crew module in the middle there with the windows. And then we've got the launch abort tower, which would pull the crew away if there was a problem with the rocket, a service module, and then a fairings that will come off during flight, which you'll see. We have several flights laid out, as Jason was just talking about. Testing is very critical. And what we did, the EFT-1 flight in December, which I know you all studied, was actually our second flight test. Back in 2010, we did our pad abort test, which tests that launch abort system to pull the crew away. So EFT-1 in December was the first time we actually took it out of the atmosphere and tested the crew module. But it won't be the last test flight you hear about. So this was Orion in November, fully complete. So this is the Orion vehicle. We rolled out from the facilities that put it together at Kennedy Space Center, and it rolled right past the VAB, which will be where we get assembled in the future on top of the rocket, and was taken over to the Air Force side where the Delta IV Heavy launch pad is. So this was a very proud day. I was actually there that day because we were doing a simulation of the flight. So all of the control teams and the engineering support team where I was, we were actually practicing the mission the same day this rolled out. So not only is the flight a test, but we have lots of tests leading up to the test. So this is always a continuing process to build these things up. And this is the Orion vehicle after we were stacked on the Delta IV Heavy. Literally in the moments before launch, the tower rolled back, and so this was the first time everything was out there exposed. But the thing to notice, everyone looks at the hardware in the vehicle, but what this represents is thousands of people's work. We spent years putting this together, years of designing and testing and doing the software. This is all custom-built software. You can't just go buy spaceflight software off the shelf. Microsoft doesn't make it. So we have to build it ourselves. So all the coding, all of the technicians that have to put it together, all the cafeteria workers that feed us, all very important pieces of getting this together. So this represents people, really, and not just the technology and equipment that put it together. So we're going to start some videos. So this is the flight, so I'll talk through them. Oh, I forgot this one. So this was actually an overview of the flight. We're going to do 2 orbits of the Earth. We come off, we're using the upper stage to get us as high away from the Earth as it possibly could. We used every ounce of performance out of that upper stage, and we get up to 3,600 nautical miles, and then we're going to come back in and test the entire parachute sequence, which starts so high we actually can't fully test it before we fly. So that's one of the main parts of this flight test, was making sure the whole parachute system works and the heat shield works, because we can't do that before we actually put something in space itself. So there's several really important pieces to this flight. These are the main objectives. First, the separation events, so all the fairings, all of the launch abort tower, the forward bay cover, the parachutes, all of these things have to work. If any one of them failed, the mission fails. The heat shield, it's only 1.6 inches thick. So just think about that. That's going to survive 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit in temperature with this much material. And so as it's coming in, it's burning away. That's how we get rid of the heat. So it actually gets thinner as you fly through the plasma. And then the radiation, which you all studied, we go through the Van Allen belts twice. Radiation is really bad for people. It's also really bad for electronics. So on electronics, you're worried about it upsetting the computer and having your computers failed, so they have to be protected. They have to have ways to restart if they did go down. So all of these things are very critical. And then lastly, the parachutes, as I already mentioned. So these are some of the main objectives we tested here. So here we're going to show the launch. So that is Delta IV Heavy taking off. You see the umbilical pull away right at the beginning. That's where we're getting power and commanding to the vehicle all the way up to the last second. So this was a pretty incredible launch day. We launched right after dawn, so we could have daylight viewing and be able to capture all of the events on camera really well. There was quite a few people out at Kennedy to watch this. This is really one of NASA's big test flights since the last time the shuttle flew. So really awesome day. I was there, but I was in a windowless room working. Boo. But that's what we're doing. And then here's the fairings separating. So once we get up in the space a little bit, we're still on the rocket here. There's actually pyrotechnic cords that run down the length of that fairing that actually fracture the metal holding it together, and then springs push them off and they fly away. So that is the first time we did a fairing separation with a load being put on it. So the crew module is actually pushing down on it when it separates, and then the fairing disappears. And then the last video you saw there was the launch abort tower coming off. And then here's one of the best parts of the mission. So this is up at 3,600 nautical miles. So the cameras inside the crew module are capturing the Earth going by. And this was one of the parts I was most excited to see. Because when you're on the ISS, and all our videos from the ISS, you're very close to the Earth. So it fills almost the entire view, and you don't see much of that curve of the Earth. But from the altitude we were at, we actually can see the Earth in a much more representative way. So this was a very exciting part of the mission. These were live camera downfeeds, so that was the best part, is that we were seeing this as it happened as well. And they were putting all of it out on NASA TV, so really the world was seeing it as it happened. And then this is us coming in. So you can see we're getting really close to the Earth in this because you don't see much of that curve. This is entry. And now what you're looking at is a camera looking up the top of the crew module out the docking hatch window. And so this purple that you're starting to see is the plasma. So this is that super hot gas coming around the crew module and leaving the plasma trail behind the vehicle. So this is what the heat shield is protecting us from through this whole entry. And it's 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When the shuttle re-entered, the space shuttle, the maximum heating on that was 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're withstanding a whole bunch more heating. And when we go out to the moon and come back, we're going to do even higher than this. It comes in 5,000 miles per hour faster. This entered at 20,000 miles per hour. When we come back from the moon, we'll be coming in at 25,000 miles per hour, so even more heating. And then as you see, the capsule's starting to turn around. You can see the Earth moving. So these are called roll reversals and bank maneuvers. So what's that doing is actually we're flying the capsule so we can get a precision landing. So the guidance system on board is calculating how to put the lift vector to literally fly the capsule to a specific point in the Pacific Ocean. So we're trying to hit a 10-kilometer target. That's with the parachutes coming out so that the Navy ship standing there can just go in and pluck the capsule out of the water. So we went up to 3,600 miles per hour, and we're going to land within a 10-kilometer circle. So now you saw some puffs of the RCS jets as we're hitting the atmosphere. And very shortly here, the parachutes will come out. So there's the forward bay cover, and then these are the drogues. So we're still going very fast when these come out. They deploy at 24,000 feet in altitude. And the drogues start slowing us down and stabilizing the capsule. And then momentarily, we'll release the drogues. This is another separation event. And here's the main parachute. So these are what everyone's familiar with, just like Apollo, very similar. 3 really big parachutes. Each one of those, I think, is wider than a football field. So they're pretty huge. We're trying to land over 20,000 pounds of capsule underneath these. So really big parachutes, and we can land safely on 2. So we can take care of all. If a whole parachute failed, we'd still land safely. And then this is that final second. So we went from 20,000 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour in less than 20 minutes. We touched down in the ocean right on target. We were 1.6 miles from our target, well within our objective. And then here's the only visible failure on the flight. The orange bags, there should be 5 of them. And those are on there, so if the capsule tips upside down in the water, it'll put it back upright so the crew can get out. So this is one of the investigations we're doing right now. This is why we did the flight test. This was the failure that we're fixing for the next flight. And then the US Navy, big fans of them, went and got our capsule back for us. So that was our second flight test, But our next one's going to be Exploration Mission 1. It'll be in 2018. And this one will be really exciting because we're actually going to go out around the moon. So this is when we're going to go out there. It's going to take 26 days. We're going to fly around the moon. We're going to check out all of the systems and then bring it back again safely from the moon. And that will be our big test flight before the crew flight on EM2. And AA2 is ascent abort 2, so we're actually going to do a practice abort where the rocket takes it up and we abort mid-flight over the Atlantic Ocean. But as Jason talked about earlier, one of the big challenges of going to Mars is not being able to bring people back quickly. So right now on the space station, you got about 45 minutes you can get down to Earth, and with hours you can be in a hospital. When we go to the moon, just the moon, not even Mars, we're 5 to 11 days from coming home. So you can't have a medical emergency that you can't deal with for a quick turnaround. Obviously, in a few days you can get back, but if there was something really important, you don't have that luxury. You don't have the ability to send new resources up quickly. It's a challenge just to go to the moon and stay there around the moon. And so that will be the proving ground for actually getting to Mars, where we're talking about months and years. And then the other really important part about Orion is that we're actually partnered with the European Space Agency to build the service module. And a large part of the service module is the big prop tanks, the engine that's going to send us out to the moon. It's going to hold the crew's water and thermal capability and the solar arrays for power generation. So partnering with the Europeans has been great. We worked with the Europeans on the ISS and other projects, and now we're actually bringing them to our human space exploration, where they're going to build the service module for Orion. It's really great working with the Europeans. I see them all the time. I've been to Europe to work with them. So it's one of the great parts is that we actually get to collaborate around the world on these projects. And then this is our first step to Mars. So there's so many pieces that we need to put together to actually get to Mars. Orion, the crew capsule, that first part of just getting the crew safely to and from space is piece number 1. We're going to need a habitat. We're going to need a big propulsion module. All of these things have to come together. So it sounds kind of corny sometimes, but this was the first step to Mars, is getting the crew capsule together, and then we can go build the rest of the things that get us there. And that's all I have, so thank you.
Great, thanks again. Thanks again. Really, really interesting presentation. I'd like to get on board. I don't know about you.
I do.
All right, so same drill. We're going to have some questions and answers. Roving microphone, please wait for the mic and do tell us your name and your school. Who's got a question? Up here in the, let's go in the back first. I see these hands. We'll get to you.
My name is Anaya Pollard from John Bartram High School, and I wanted to know, when you actually get to Mars, how long will y'all be there?
So the profile to go to Mars with the technology we have realistically is probably going to take about 9 months to get there, 6 months on the surface, and then 9 months to come home. So really you're looking at almost 2 years for a round trip to Mars. So that's using the rocket technology, and the orbits, the way the Earth and Moon align, are very critical, and that's what drives that long timeline out.
All right, those of you right down about in the middle, raise your hands again. Let's take this one, the green striped shirt there.
My name is Stephen Zakoy from Carmichael's Area School District. My question is, between now and Exploration 1, what adjustments or upgrades will you add to the Orion between this time and now?
Great question. So on this flight for EFT-1, the service module was just a piece of metal. It was just a piece of structure in there. It didn't have any of the systems. And then there was a lot of pieces in the crew capsule that weren't there because we didn't have people on board. So the biggest upgrades we're designing as we go. So the big upgrades from EFT-1 to the Exploration Mission 1 are the complete service module, which includes all of the pieces from our European partners, and then a fully upgraded crew module so that almost all of the stuff is in there. We still won't have all the crew support because they're not flying on EM1, but there is still tons of work getting from EFT-1 to EM1. So every flight test we're building on it, and even when we put people on that first EM2 mission, we still won't have everything because we won't have, say, the docking mechanism. So all of these flights build on each other, and we'll continue building and fixing and putting more stuff on and making it better every flight.
All right, let's try just in the middle of that row. There was someone else in the black top here.
My name's Caitlin Sin from Carmichael's Elementary School. What words of encouragement do you have for women wanting to enter the science field?
Topic near and dear to my heart. Women entering the science field, obviously there aren't as many women in it, but it's believe in yourself. It's not about boys versus girls, it's about you. And you have the ability to do this. And sometimes you won't see a lot of other women around, but go find them and go ask them questions. Go join the Society of Women Engineers. They have youth programs and stuff for college students. So go out and ask questions. I actually have a mentee I just picked up in SWE So those types of programs, just so you can meet other women and ask questions and work out some of the challenges that you face as a woman. But engineering as a whole, it's great for women. There's a lot of creativity in women, or in women and engineering to solve the problems. So it's a great field for both boys and girls.
Okay, Christine, in the same row, but on your side. Gentleman in the black top.
My name is Caleb Wolfson from Carmichael's. When did you know that you wanted to work for NASA?
So knowing that I wanted to work for NASA, I always loved science in school, and I was good at math. So it was just aerospace, things like that. I loved going to the Flight Museum when I was a kid in Seattle. I loved doing airplane things, and then it just kept growing. I loved learning about Apollo stuff. So by the time I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. I still want to be an astronaut. But this is if I can't be an astronaut, I'm going to send people to space. So reaching for the stars, falling in the clouds. So whether or not I get to be an astronaut doesn't matter. I'm still getting to work at NASA and do what I love.
Do we have one more on this side? Anybody on this side? Right there. And then we'll go over here to the gentleman with the white shirt and the tie down towards the front.
Hi, I'm Lauren Sanichek, and I'm from Mapletown. When trying to determine what the next project is going to be, what steps does NASA take in determining the goals for that project?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You should have Jason answer that one. But I think the goals are a lot about trying to fit in what you think you can accomplish and attack the hardest parts first. So the hardest thing first for Orion is the heat shield and the parachutes, because both of those systems, like I said, we can't fully test beforehand. So those were really the primary objectives. First, can we put the capsule together? Second, can we test the heat shield and the parachutes and measure things like the radiation environment that you really have to be in space for? Then the next flight, can we put it all together? Can we do 26 days in space? Will the power systems all work? Things like that. Can we test out all of the other stuff we're going to need before we put the crew on it? And then lastly, we'll put the crew on it. And that first time the crew flies is really still kind of a test flight, because we're putting them on, all of the environment and life control systems will be on, and now we're testing all of that out with the crew. And then we also need to make provisions for if we have problems during that flight. So all of these things build on each other, and you always attack the biggest challenge first and then work your way down.
All right, right here.
My name is Richard Morrison. I just have a question. You mentioned that Microsoft can't make a program to help NASA. You mentioned that you do collaborate with other nations in their programs. Do you foresee a time where we're going to be able to expedite this process by reaching out to privatized industry? And do you think that might be the next step?
I think we've already reached that step. One of the main purposes of NASA right now is building on that collaboration with commercial. So the commercial crew program and the commercial cargo program are being stood up to supply the International Space Station. And the cargo program is also already being demonstrated to be incredibly successful. So there's already commercial companies flying flights, SpaceX and Orbital, to the space station delivering cargo on commercial contracts. So we're already there. And so we're already partnering to bring in those commercial assets. And the only reason I say Microsoft doesn't build it is because you don't build it to scale, right? You know, Microsoft wants to sell millions of units, and there's only so many spacecraft. But we're already partnering. So NASA is trying to take on the challenge, and Orion is the challenge of going to do exploration where there isn't necessarily a business case, but the commercial market is already thriving.
I see one back up the row, about 3 rows from the back.
In a video, it was pieces that fell off of the spaceship. I would like to know what happens to those pieces after they fall off. Like, do they come back to Earth? Do they burn?
Okay. So the fairings and the launch abort tower that we jettisoned during ascent, they fall into the atmosphere, and they don't experience the same amount of heating Orion does, but they experience a lot of heating and a lot of aerodynamic forces. So they do break up and mostly burn away. I'm not sure that anything actually makes it down, but if it did, it would land in the ocean. So it wouldn't actually be a danger to anyone. But for the most part, they completely disintegrate before they get down.
Okay.
And the service module, I should add, when we re-enter, the crew capsule has the heat shield, but the service module has nothing protecting it. So that actually will become a big fireball behind Orion, and we make sure we're safely away, but that will fall apart and fall into the Pacific Ocean when we land the crew capsule in the future.
All right, another question? 2 there and the 3 in the middle aisles. We'll try to take you in sequence there.
My name is Amelia Foreman, and I'm from Mapletown High School. I would like to know some of the future plans NASA has for Orion.
So some of the future plans for Orion, so like right now we're still heads down trying to actually build the vehicle and test it, but I think a lot of the plans involve Orion going around the moon and being a support architecture for either lunar bases. It could support a lunar landing, it could support Mars missions. So Orion, and that's one of the primary parts of my job, is making sure that when we build this vehicle, we can do a lot of different things. So I really don't know what missions are out there, but we're trying to build something that is capable of doing whatever it is we need to do for exploration. So big challenge. A lot of the things we design into Orion are actually making space or reserving volumes and electrical attachments and stuff so that we can upgrade it later. So we can add on more water kits. We can add on whatever we need to do those missions. So we're actually trying to build in an architecture where we can add to Orion as needed when a mission gets developed.
All right, great. I made a promise I can't keep. We're not going to be able to get to those other two questions. So thank you very much. It's a great presentation. All right, thank you, Nujoud. Now, it's the time everybody's been waiting for, the student presentations. I want to thank all of you again for getting up so early to travel here today. You've been a great audience, and I want you to give a big round of applause for Ryan Kovach and Abigail Shipley from Mapletown Junior and Senior High School in Greensboro, Pennsylvania.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goals. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude." We are faced with challenges in our lives every single day, some big and some small. The small ones are more frequent, getting out of bed in the morning, doing homework, or talking to someone that we don't like. Overcoming these challenges helps prepare us for the major challenges that we will face in life, maybe only once or twice. They aren't bad. We learn from them and we become stronger by overcoming them. Being challenged forces us to go outside of our comfort zone and to think outside of the box, which is why some of the greatest technological advancements in history have come about by overcoming challenges. At Mapletown, we are faced with many challenges, just as NASA and the Orion program was. NASA served as a great example of overcoming challenges by developing and assembling a space vehicle that will take space exploration further than ever before, regardless of the substantial obstacles and setbacks that face them. Just as we have overcome obstacles that we've been faced with at Mapletown. Our football team made it to the playoffs this year for the first time in over 10 years, and we got our marching band back, something that we haven't had in a long time. This could not have been accomplished if it wasn't for setting goals, teamwork, and most of all, hard work. We are small, just like the spark that ignited the design of Orion, but stand true to the idea that size doesn't matter. What matters is how much you want it.
President George Bush first announced Orion spacecraft mission back in 2004. He announced this as a campaign for the Vision for Space Exploration, but this was later replaced by President Obama's space program policy. The campaign was first proposed or developed in an attempt to ease the pain and regain the interest in space exploration among Americans after the Columbia disaster that devastated the nation the year prior. To facilitate human and robotic exploration, President Bush designed 3 ambitious goals. The first was to complete work on the International Space Station, which would fulfill commitments to various countries that we had. The second was to develop a manned exploration vehicle that would allow discoveries to be made beyond our orbit. The third and final would be for America to return to the moon as soon as possible. With the development of these achievable and obtainable goals, A foundation for progress and success was formed for NASA to build upon.
Assembling a space exploration vehicle capable of carrying crew members safely at speeds of up to 20,000 miles per hour while withstanding temperatures of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit and harsh radiation requires dedication to the research and development of technological advances that are necessary for the safe return of crew members. These brilliant ideas forever changing the way that missions and research will be conducted. As further research was conducted, more problems surrounding the issue of whether the crew capsule would withstand space exploration arose. As a collaboration of multiple theories came together, a successful design arose.
The hard work and continuous positive mental attitudes that not only NASA had but also the nation allowed a huge milestone to be reached. In December 2014, Orion was launched upon a rocket that was capable of taking Orion to conditions necessary for testing. The craft orbited Earth twice, reaching altitudes of approximately 3,600 miles before returning to Earth. Upon arrival, engineers and specialists continued to analyze the data and information collected during the test flight to validate computer systems used, ensure dependability of recovering operations, and of course, reduce the overall risk and cost of future missions.
As NASA continues to make discoveries and enhance the knowledge about our universe that surrounds everyone, they will continue to face obstacles and setbacks that can be discouraging. However, if determination is focused on a certain dream, success and desired outcomes are always achievable. The same principle can be said for ordinary people in our ordinary everyday lives. If they possess a relentless dream, are willing to exercise surrounding resources, and of course, never give up, then they too can achieve any dream possible, no matter how impossible it may seem. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Great presentation. Our next presentation is from Carmichael's Junior Senior High School, Carmichael's, Pennsylvania, Adam Donaldson and Madison Wilson.
Good morning. Every day, people face challenges that may seem insurmountable. Throughout the construction of the Orion spacecraft, NASA encountered many things that would make a lesser organization quit. Despite these conflicts, NASA persevered by realizing goals, keeping a positive mindset, and utilizing the aid of an amazing team. Success is always possible. Famous First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt can be quoted as saying, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." The importance of dreams and goals are emphasized in the first stepping stone to success. No team is more familiar with the influence of dreams and goals than the NASA teams involved with the construction of the Orion spacecraft. The Orion spacecraft was a mission whose purpose was to reinstate the power of the United States space program after the Columbia accident. NASA understood Orion's significance and assigned the spacecraft a fantastic mission to travel to Mars.
In the second stepping stone to success, resource review, NASA engineers figured out the budget and equipment that would be needed during the development process. NASA reaching out to the public for help. As part of the third stepping stone to success, team support. In doing so, they were able to make many ideas and concepts created by young minds and morph them into useful hypotheses for the Orion radiation shield. The radiation shield must be strong enough to go through the Van Allen radiation belt. Knowing this, scientists located the prime heavy metals, tantalum, tin, zirconium, aluminum, and polyethylene, which absorb harmful gamma rays. In addition to these materials, another ideal substance for the heat shield would be Avcoat. Avcoat is made of epoxy and Novolac resin in a fiberglass honeycomb matrix, which will melt and encase the area in which it is located. This research emphasizes the fourth stepping stone to success: decide and plan. While problems seem to rise up against the NASA team, any task is accomplishable with a positive attitude. The key to maintaining this mindset is a personality trait to be acquired at any age: resiliency.
Resiliency is the ability to recover from adversity. When the Augustine Commission found the Constellation program to be very under budget and behind schedule in several vital components, the team was thought unlikely to be capable of meeting any of their scheduled goals. The NASA teams proved willing to renegotiate their original plans in order to achieve optimal results, despite their former disappointments. Even an organization of experts such as NASA utilizes the stepping stones to success. As humans, we strive towards set goals. Throughout our lives, we will no doubt encounter obstacles. It is the ability to face this adversity and adapt ourselves that makes us human. No matter what happens, we must always look forward. Famous poet Walt Whitman once said, "Keep your face always towards the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you." As long as we do not doubt ourselves, there is always a chance of success. These stepping stones, along with others, can help us conquer any obstacle and beat any odd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, for the next school, and I'm going to get it right this time. It's West Green Middle High School from Waynesburg, Pennsylvania. Joey Henderson, Morgan Stover. And while you're coming up here, let me just mention your teachers since I missed them too the last time, all right? Timothy Barnes, Matt Cross, and Tanya Meek, and Principal Jed Hamburger. Welcome.
Good morning. Our West Green Quarterbacks of Life Club found the stepping stones a great way to help us relate to NASA and their Orion Radiation Shield project. Jules Verne once said, "Reality provides us with facts so romantic, the imagination itself could add nothing to them." Verne was a founder of the science fiction genre and was an astronaut into the imagination. Traveling to Mars was once sounded like something that you would only hear in one of these novels. But somewhere, someone had to come up with this goal and this dream, just like stepping stone number 1 says. Some people are great at being leaders, while some prefer to be led. Self-awareness is a crucial point for any organization to succeed. For NASA to design the radiation shield of such magnitude, they had to utilize stepping stone number 2, self-awareness. They had to acknowledge their strengths and weaknesses. Our Quarterbacks of Life Club also had to do this to harness our unique characters and strengths to bring them to our group.
The NASA team had to seek resources to propel us into the 21st century. Stepping Stone 3, Team Support, utilizes a variety of people to work together to create the Orion Radiation Shield, just as our Quarterbacks of Life program does. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, neither was this radiation shield. It took many people doing many different tasks together to achieve the same goal. Space can cause terrible damage to human beings, like damage to the skin, skeleton, organs, and nervous system. Scientists are using Stepping Stone 4, the decide and plan method, to find countermeasures against this radiation. Astronauts need to limit their time in space to at least 3 to 6 months. A mission to Mars, however, would take 2 years round trip, and NASA realized that a radiation shield would be necessary. It's easy to become discouraged when striving to meet a hefty goal, such as traveling to Mars. Sometimes, in order to shoot for the stars and achieve greatness, Stepping Stone 5, having a positive mental attitude, is crucial for success. NASA can't employ people who give in to defeat. Like NASA, our Quarterbacks of Life program encourages students to spread and maintain a positive attitude throughout our school and our community. In studying and learning about NASA's experiences with the Orion Radiation Challenge, our group had to use the stepping stones to success for ourselves in order to be successful in our project. As we continue towards our futures, we will take these lessons we have learned from Orion and NASA's team and apply them to our own goals to make them achievable. And on behalf of myself and my fellow West Green students, we would like to wish all the moms out there a happy Mother's Day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next, Washington Junior Senior High School from Washington, Pennsylvania. I think you all are over here, right? Elizabeth Geisey and Jair Patman. Did I say that one right? No?
Good morning. Orion. This is a very complex subject to study. Without Orion, how will we plan to visit Mars? What will NASA discover in looking for a new method to protect astronauts from radiation? How will we innovate our outer space exploration? These are some questions to consider. The 7 people who make up our team were assigned to research Orion. Of course, when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. None of us had studied Orion in classes. There were a few times when we got lost in our research. I'm sure this was expected from us and all of us. Our ignorance of current space travels, mixed with our various skills and strengths, allowed us to get a better understanding of working as a team for success. Using the stepping stones of success, we realize that NASA also endures trials and failures, but must continue to work to find a successful method to shield astronauts from radiation. As we look back on the highlights of space travel, we can see what the United States has accomplished. Orion will be another success in our exploration of space. It is difficult to say what is impossible, for the dream of yesterday is the hope of today and the reality of tomorrow. Robert Goddard. Dreams and goals. The first goal of Orion was to successfully launch into space. Ultimately, this will be a manned spaceship heading to Mars. Important parts of spacecraft are the heat shields that protect the astronauts. NASA has asked high school students to participate in design ideas for radiation protection. The design ideas are tested by engineers determining the best materials and designs. For the dream to travel to Mars, everyone on board needs to be safe. Self-awareness is having a clear perception of your personality, including strengths and weaknesses, thoughts, beliefs, motivation, and emotions. Just like NASA, our team had to get tighter to become aware of our strengths and resources. Before Orion took off on its first flight, a malfunction was detected in the rocket drain valve. NASA had to be aware of their failures. If they were not aware and carefully monitoring the launch, they could have been in for a big problem. Teamwork. Team support when challenges appear has been the way that NASA has faced and overcome the failures and successes in the race to complete Orion for the travel to Mars.
Decide and plan. Radiation affects electronics in space, so it is a big problem. NASA needs to protect all functioning systems from radiation and allow astronauts to travel safely. There are ways of preventing radiation from damaging electronics. You can build a radiation-hardened processor, but that's not very cost-efficient. You can use thermomechanical response. With TMR, you can use 3 of the same processors so that if one has an error, the others will outvote and correct the mistake. Obstacles. Everyone runs into obstacles while on their journey to success. It doesn't matter what you want to achieve, whether it's something big as becoming a professional athlete, or it's something small such as writing an essay like this one. There's always something standing in your way. Overcoming obstacles is very crucial in achieving your goals. NASA has dealt with obstacles throughout most of its history, like when it was getting Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the moon or getting the Apollo 13 space team home safely. Now they are dealing with obstacles involving the Orion spacecraft. They have been working hard on figuring out how to make a radiation shield that will safely transport the astronaut through the Van Allen belt. Selecting designs and materials to test on future flights will determine the success of their product. The engineers never give up, even as they overcome failures, using persistence to meet their goals. Positive mental attitude. Positive mental attitude is your outlook on different situations. It can be as simple as getting up in the morning and convincing yourself that, hey, today's going to be a good day, or as difficult as finding the silver lining in something devastating. If failure has you down, you need to have a positive outlook and remember that success results from failure. NASA uses failure to its advantage. In fact, it simulates failure to test parachutes and other safety gear to function correctly. Have you ever heard the saying, whether you say you can or you say you can't, you're right? That's about mental attitude. If you believe in yourself and believe that you can accomplish great things, you can. Keeping a positive mental attitude results in success. Thank you.
All right, good job, thank you. Next we have from Fraser Middle and High School in Perryopolis, Hattie Lindy and Michael Nutt. We have Hattie. Where's Michael?
Good morning. The 5 stepping stones to success are used every day by people all across the United States. Without these, NASA would not have been able to defeat some of the biggest challenges they faced and would never have been able to come up with a feasible way of making the Orion radiation shield. The first stepping stone is mapping out your dreams and goals. This allows you to get a clear understanding of the path you're wishing to pursue and how you should go about it. For NASA, their dream is to get all passengers safely to Mars. That's why they have spent so much time testing the Orion's radiation shield. Stepping stone 2, self-esteem, is the strength to believe that one can face challenges and they can encounter various aspects of their lives. NASA must be able to learn and prosper from their past failures and find confidence within their victories. Without team support, stepping stone 3, you would never be able to advance. Your dream would never be able to advance and become a reality. It's one thing to create a team, but quite another to create teamwork. That's why NASA is relying on their whole team to band together in order to create a safe and effective radiation shield. If you didn't have team support, your dream would always stay fiction.
While NASA's goal is to place the first human being on the surface of Mars, the question arose, how? NASA went through unyielding research to plan for this monumental step for mankind. When presented with the problem of radiation, NASA decided to create a shield that would ensure the safety of the Orion's crew. Without this extensive planning, these innovations never would have come to light, and this awe-inspiring mission would have died at the thought, let's go to Mars. Stone 5. Over the years, the people of NASA have preserved the positive mental attitude. Because of failures, as you saw today from the testing or from examples like the Challenger, Apollo 1, Columbia, there have been obvious drains in the morale of NASA, but they never threw in the towel. They can stay consistent. Excuse me. NASA has been tasked to do this radiation shield, and then simultaneously it has to be effective and efficient. And by keeping a positive mental attitude, they've been able to pull through and be persistent with their discoveries. Now, at the dawn of a new age of the space exploration, we can see that NASA is one step closer to fulfilling their vision. Mars, the red planet, the place where no man has been before. Not only will this radiation shield protect the systems and crew of the Orion spacecraft, it will protect the mission, the idea, and the dream. Thank you.
Thank you.
right, thank you very much. I think we'll sign him up for the NASA Public Affairs job. All right, and our last presentation today is from Bellwood Antis Middle School in Bellwood, Pennsylvania, Quinton Nelson and Cassidy Ryder.
Good morning. I am Quinton Nelson.
We are accompanied by our team members today from Bellwood Antis School District in Bellwood, Pennsylvania. It is truly a privilege to be able to come here and present to you today.
I can remember in late fall, on an ordinary Monday afternoon, strolling into our typical leadership meeting. As a whole, our team was instructed to start on a new project, a project in which its real-life replica could potentially land on the fourth rock from the sun.
The project asked us to study radiation and how it affects matter, as well as create a detailed blueprint for Orion's radiation shield. We needed hard work, dedication, and teamwork present during this project.
We now look back on these elements and admire how far they've taken us. But, to be honest, we had never thought this project would take us to Washington, D.C. What an honor.
The journey that has brought us here has been full of dreams, goals, teamwork, decisions, problems, and utmost dedication.
For starters, we needed a goal, a dream, or something to look forward to during this assignment. The objective we sought to reach was to learn about cosmic radiation and how it affects materials. We then wanted to use this knowledge to create a blueprint for Orion's radiation shield.
Another thing that this project demanded was resources. We had an abundance of them at our request to help us when we had difficulty. Sometimes, we wish we had more websites and additional advice from different types of engineers available to us during this project. It would have assisted us in gaining a better understanding of what is needed to be done and how.
Our team worked really well together. We had the chance to find out each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we used them to our advantages in ways we have never had imagined.
We had many ideas to accomplish our tasks when we started this project. These ideas including titanium, graphene, hydrogen, RxF1, feces or human waste, water, polyethylene, tungsten, aluminum, lead, soil, tin, concrete, steel, boron, and carbon.
Our top three metals are graphene, lead, and aluminum. We picked graphene because it slows down neutrons and it contains large amounts of carbon. Another was lead because it has a high density, and aluminum was picked because it is lightweight and it stops beta particles easily. Our top two nonmetals are feces, or human waste, and carbon. We selected feces because it has more nuclei per volume, has a large amount of hydrogen, and there can be a large supply. We then chose carbon because it has a low density and is great for absorbing and dispersing radiation.
Positive mental attitude was a key component to achieving the goal we had set. Some of us got stuck and or frustrated as we were coming up with ideas for materials, but fortunately, others were there to help each other out. Unfortunately, there always seems to be a downside to everything. Ours happened to be a lack of meeting time and limited amounts of resources. We normally met every Monday. It seemed like almost everyone during this past winter there was either a cancellation or an early dismissal due to weather. Also, coming from a small town, we seem to lack in certain materials that others might be able to obtain with minimal effort.
In any event, we were able to develop a proposal for you. We think that using a system of layers would create an efficient shield to block the radiation found in space. This system would include rounded sheets of each material found in our top three metals. Steel cylinders would be inserted into the ends, possibly in the middle of these sheets. These steel cylinders would be lined up with very strong magnets, which would hold the sheets together. In between these layers would be pockets filled with the materials found in our top two nonmetals. The fecal matter would be contained in vacuum-sealed bags for safety and sanitary reasons.
We would like to thank everyone at NASA for giving us this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Most importantly, thank you, Mr. Rocco Scalzi, for involving us in such an awesome organization and inspiring us to do great things.
Being on the leadership team has opened a lot of doors for us here today. Out of everything we have learned, the most important to me was the value of friendship and teamwork, because in order to make it in a world like this, you need people you can count on. My team members are people that I hopefully will be in contact with forever.
These last 2 years with the leadership team have been special ones, and we were all so grateful for this experience. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Barry. That was just fascinating. I want to see a show of hands. Who's learned something today? Everybody? I have. Wave it. That's right. I learned quite a bit from that presentation. It was It's fascinating. All right, so we're at the end of our program today. I want to thank our NASA guests, Jason Crusan and Nujoud Merancy, our special guest Warren Moon, David Meltzer, Mr. Scalzi from Beating the Odds Foundation, and all of our student future leaders. Give yourselves a big, healthy round of applause. All right, thank you very much.